From Swoop, it's Take the Plunge, a podcast about how business owners decided to stop what they were doing and took the plunge to start their own businesses. We take a look at how they came to that decision and what those first crucial steps were in getting their business up and running. My name's Ciaran and I'll be your host for this episode. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Emma Thompson, founder of multi-award winning skincare and body care brand Beehaven Body Care, voted Ulster Tatler's Magazine's Entrepreneur of the Year 2023. Emma runs the business along with her daughter Brooke and is an ethical beekeeper and breeder, using the byproducts from her hives to produce many of the natural skincare products she sells on her website, app and retail store. Emma has built a large following on social media where she shares videos about keeping bees and the day-to-day running of her skincare brand. You're very, very welcome to the pod, Emma. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, great having you on, Emma. So if I could take you back to the very, very beginning, and could you tell us a little bit about kind of what you were doing before kicking off the business? And was it something that just happened instantly, or was it something that you were thinking about for a long time?
It just happened. And honestly, whenever I look back, if I'd have known everything in the 5 years from starting to now, I probably wouldn't have done it. It would have felt like such an incredible hard journey, but actually in retrospect it hasn't been, because
Yeah.
it's just been a natural thing. So why did I start? I literally solved a problem in my own skin, and decided then that maybe I could help other people. So that kind of
Mm-hmm.
spurred on the initial base of the body care business, but I was a beekeeper prior to that. So everything just kind of meshed and sort of became a bigger thing
Mm.
because it was already there. All the little parts happened all at different times.
And I suppose one of the obvious questions is, how did you get into bees?
So, do you know what's really funny? It's really, really funny because it was more so. I've my full journey from beekeeper to business owner, really has spurred on from this issue, the skin issue, basically. So,
Oh, go
I was a
on.
beekeeper for about 5 years, and I had terrible acne from 11 right through until 4 or 5 years ago, and I got into beekeeping because I was on this journey to heal my gut, to heal my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had said to me, I tried everything, all sorts of stuff, pr- you know, creams and antibiotics, all sorts of things,
Yeah,
and nothing had
yeah.
ever worked. It was just got worse. So somebody had said to me, "What about your gut bacteria?" And I was like, "What's that?"
Get into the microbiomes. Yeah.
Absolutely didn't know
Yeah.
anything about it. But as always happens with me, I go down the rabbit hole and become completely obsessed. I had become completely obsessed with my gut microbiome. I was making my own kombucha, kefir. I was making my own yogurt. I was making all of these things that I was
Yeah.
eating like in abundance, and my skin had started to improve. But everything was, a bit rotten. Really, I was still doing it, so thinking it. But so I had read then on my sort of Google search of probiotic foods that raw honey was probiotic. So
Yeah.
I decided to get some raw honey, and it arrived. I bought it online because I didn't even know locally where
Yeah.
you would buy raw honey. And there's loads of beekeepers around here, but I didn't know that. I didn't
Yeah.
know. Beekeepers are like cars. Whenever you see a car and you go, "Oh, I've never seen that before," and then you see
And then you
loads
see
of
them.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like beekeepers. So I had taken a spoonful of this raw honey, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's amazing!" I hadn't had like lovely honey like that since I was a child. We had
Yeah.
this. I don't know if you had it whenever you were younger, but everybody had the same honey back then. There must have only been like a few variants.
Yeah. I can
White
describe the.
tub,
Yes.
white
Yes.
tub, red top, and I think it was called clover honey.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that
I
was what it was
remember it. I have it in my
called.
porridge in the morning as a
Yeah, and
kid.
it was
Yeah.
beautiful. And then obviously everything gets ruined, doesn't it? So now the honey that we have isn't even really honey. But anyway, I'm not talking about that. So I took a spoonful of the honey, and as I was sitting in my living room, I can still see it. I picked up my phone and I started to Google, where does honey come from? I literally didn't know. So I'm 44 now. So I was 38, 39.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't. That was beekeeping. So that was about 10 years ago. So 34, 35.
Yeah.
Didn't really understand the journey of nectar, bee and honey. So as I was reading about it, and it wasn't even just that bees make honey, oh wow, isn't that fantastic? It was, I
Yeah.
really got involved, like really got interested in their behavior and how they
Mm-hmm.
communicate. And, lots of things in life pass us over and they just sort of pass us by. We think about them for a second and then we move on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a few things that have hit me smack bang in the face, and I haven't been able to move on for them. I just knew that bees, never thought about them before. Actually, had never physically remember seeing a honeybee before. I'm sure I had, but I probably thought they were wasps. I didn't, so that I'd never had a relationship or a thought process or an interest in anything to do with bees. And from that
Mm-hmm.
moment on, I went down the rabbit hole, and within a year, I'd done my introduction to beekeeping course, and then I got my first couple of hives that summer after, and that's how it all started with the beekeeping. So again,
Right.
it was a skin thing,
Yeah, but I'm super curious just on if we can go into that little rabbit hole for a second. Okay.
You don't want to go into
Uh,
the rabbit hole.
no, like, just a little bit because you really piqued my curiosity. So there's two things there. Is like, how does one find courses on bees? Is it a big thing in around the Belfast area? And then
Big
second,
thing in Ireland.
is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I'm
is
fascinated.
massive.
Yeah, tell me. So I need to look out for these beekeepers. And then secondly, where does one go get a load of hives? Or do you have to like get your area or your garden ready before bringing them in, or how does that
No,
all work?
no, bees are amazing at being bees, right?
Yeah,
Bees don't need,
that's the
they don't
quote.
need, they don't need, a kennel. They don't need, they can just do, so what happens is, and again, it's that thing, once you've asked the question, now that you've pondered it,
Yeah,
something will happen over the next week or two and you'll be like, there it is, there's that beekeeping thing. So
no
there's a
way.
thing called the Ulster Beekeeping Association.
Of course
Um,
there is.
there's then there's a variant of that across the border, and then of course there's the British Beekeeping Association. And that's where you find your course. Now, I didn't know. I had I think I probably Googled that too. How do you
Yeah,
become a beekeeper? So in every area, locality, there's a beekeeping association. So I live in Ballygowan. In Killinchy, there's a beekeeping association. In Belfast, there's a beekeeping association. But you would never
blowing my
know.
mind.
You would
Blowing
never
my
know,
mind.
you know.
Yeah,
Um, and beekeepers randomly just look like everybody else. They're not
yeah.
all, we're not kind of
I
walking
wouldn't put
down
you
your
down
bee
as a
street.
stereotypical
No.
beekeeper myself now, but not that I know many, but
Most of them are retired gentlemen, I have to say. So,
yeah.
so once,
Do you have
once,
like meetups and stuff?
well, I don't so much anymore. But yes, it's heavily
This is like a.
functioning around a committee. I'm not a committee. I'm not that person. I can't be bothered with committees. Not interested.
What kind of stuff will go down the committee? Sorry, I'm really rabbit holing here, but I'm so
This is
fascinated.
no, this is great. I'm glad we went this way. Well, let me just say they like to talk at length about bee diseases. That's all I'm saying.
Is there any?
At length.
Is there like a COVID or an epidemic hitting
Yeah.
bees at the
Oh
moment?
God. Yeah. And if there, yeah. Oh, there is. Yeah. I mean, once you've learned about it once, that's kind of enough. But they talk about it every month. So
Wow.
there's things called like varroa mites, and there's lots of different things.
Yeah.
Like you get lots of information. It's a good community. If you're starting out, you've done your introduction to beekeeping course. At the end of that course, you in the beekeeping association, they'll have somebody um, who will give you what's known as a nucleus. You'll buy it. It's I think
Yeah.
250 quid. I don't think it was
Yeah.
that expensive whenever I bought it, but they're very expensive now, as everything is. About 250 quid, and that'll get you a nucleus of bees, which is
Yeah.
basically a mated queen and a small colony.
Gotcha.
In the course, then you will also find out how to build your hive, how to buy your hive, what suit to buy. All of those things are sort of given to you in the course, and also on the course as well, which is it's very important for people to do it. Is you're given a mentor for your first year. Beekeeping is one of those things. It's like whenever you learn how to drive and you get your tests, and up here you get hour plates, but you really still don't
Yeah.
have a clue what you're doing. You have no idea.
And
So
and and does the mentor come along when you're doing the first kind of collection and stuff like that? And is a bit like when you're learning to drive and you've got your parents in the car and you're absolutely
oh
fuming, you're like, get the F out of
yeah,
my
yeah,
fucking car,
yeah,
please. Is it the same
absolutely,
with the
yeah.
beat?
So the beekeeper does come along. It's more for your first inspections, and obviously you get your bees like sort of in June time usually, and then obviously you're smack bang in the middle of swarming season. So the main issues for a beekeeper in their first year is are my bees going to swarm? And what I do if they do? And the answer is yes, they are going to swarm. And there's really not much you can do. So, so there's all of those things. Looking out for swarm. You kind of look in the hive to see, are they swarmy? Are they going to
Yeah.
swarm? So it's like learning the bee language. And that's what you really do for the first couple of years. I still learn 10 years on every time I go into the hives. There's something I've done and it's like, well, I shouldn't have done that. I'll not do that again.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that really worked. Let's remember that. And then you forget it, of course. Everything happens differently each time you go into the hive. I feel anyway. So the beekeeping course is just great for that. You get your equipment. You need to be safe at the hives too. I mean, I've had a few, incidents with multiple stings, and let me tell you, it's not pretty. It isn't pretty.
How long? What's the damage? What's the downtime you're talking here?
I had to take 2 weeks off work. I got about
Okay.
100 stings to the head and the face.
Oh,
I didn't zip
not
my veil
ideal.
up. And I was shaking bees in, and they were angry because I had them in an observation hive. I was doing an event for the National Trust, so I'd taken these frames of bees out of the hive and put them in a glass fronted, temporary kind of hive. And it was a warm day, so they were not amused. And I put my suit on and didn't zip this bit. So this bit,
Jesus.
and it was only a tiny gap, but bees. They can find, they will find, even though they're small, they will find the hole. They always find the hole. So I shook the bees back into the hive and they went whoo.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, and I had a little bit more hair then, but they were in my head stinging. So anyway, I thought it was funny. Dad and I had a great laugh about it because Dad and I did the bees together. My mum, who's a nurse, didn't think it was just quite so funny. My whole face swole up. My eyes were at the side of my head. I had nothing here. It was just all.
Like an avatar or something.
I looked like an avatar. I did. Do you know what? Maybe after this, I'll send you I'll email
That
you
can be the back shot.
and you can actually use it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, we really rabbit hole there. So from learning about it and stuff like that, how did you having kind of mastered a little bit, how did you take that on in terms of starting to produce bees or produce honey and so on and so forth? Like, was that an easy transition or was it kind of a gradual process?
It kind of happens naturally, the whole honey thing, but it's knowing when to put zippers on, knowing when to take the zippers off, and things like that. We would see ourselves more, and this is a term that I think is not greatly loved in the wider beekeeping community, but we would consider ourselves ethical beekeepers. So we don't clip our queen's wings
Gotcha.
half off, which kind of helps with swarms. We don't do that, and we try not to mark our queens with pen. Although I did get into queen rearing this year, so I did start this year to breed my own queen bees, and actually you do need to mark them so you know what age they are. And we don't lift our honey off as soon as it comes on, like a lot of beekeepers do, especially this year. There's massive honey drought. We've had almost zero because of our ethical, because of the wet July. It was terrible.
I was about to say, yeah, what causes that? Like, is it because would you say Ireland has a nice climate for bees normally, or?
Ireland has a nice climate. Ireland doesn't have a nice climate.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, like
that's a lie. Ireland's crap, right? But so what you want is
it's what, like equator or something.
yeah. I mean, it's totally the wrong place to keep bees because it's wet all of the time. No,
July was
our
miserable.
season's very short, so nectar flow. Whenever a flower's in bloom, it doesn't necessarily. Hold on a wee second. Hold on.
Yeah, there is.
Sorry, it's a bin man. Sorry. Right. Oh. So
back
whenever a
again.
flower is in bloom, it doesn't necessarily mean that the flower's in nectar flow. Really, and I can only speak, I don't know if it's different. I'm sure it's different further on down south of
Yeah.
Ireland. I'm sure it's very different, but I can only speak for the north and my little bit. We have our volume of nectar flow is in July.
Yeah.
So the bees will get a little bit early spring from dandelions and things like that.
Mm.
Bees will then get a wee bit in May and they'll store that. Out of the 4 weeks in June, there's really only 2 of those weeks that there's a nectar flow. There's actually a drought. There's actually a nectar gap in June where we have to feed the bees because there's nothing
Yeah.
about. There's a gap in the nectar flow. July is whenever those bees collect the most volume of nectar and turn that into honey. They'll fill supers. They could fill a super a week or more of honey. And then August, there's a little bit of a gap. And then kind of September time, they collect ivy. Ivy is in abundance in Northern Ireland, but ivy honey the bees can't eat.
Oh,
It solidifies too much for their jaws. So July is the month. July this, I don't know if it was the
it was a
same, but
disaster. It was
uh,
a disaster.
the wettest on record. So
Yeah.
because we could have lifted out frames of honey that they collected in May, but I don't do that. I leave my honey on until end of August, end of September, so that the bees can get what they need, and also because we're very slightly lazy. We do. They're happy enough to like you take what you need, gives us a bit of breathing space, and that's kind of worked well for us. So this year, because we didn't do that, the bees were in the hive. They couldn't come out because it was so wet. The rain was washing the nectar away. The plants were soaking. So they were eating the stores that they had, and they weren't collecting any. So what happened then is, it turned into quite a, like, they were so angry because in August, honestly, bees have emotions.
I'd say they were proper fuming with that
And they
July.
were absolutely raging, right? That's what we say. Absolutely raging. Because
Scundered. Do you not say
absolutely, they were
scundered?
scundered. Scundered.
Scundered.
They were scundered, right? Absolutely scundered. Because they weren't in the position, bees are very intelligent, they weren't in the position that they needed to be in to start
No
preparing for
fun.
winter. So
What goes down in winter?
well, like honeybees don't hibernate. Bumblebees and wasps do hibernate.
Yeah.
As single mated queens, they don't hibernate as a colony. But honeybees, they don't ever stop. They're a living organism right through all of the seasons. So the queen can last 3 to 5 years. The honeybees, the workers, and the drones and stuff, they only last about 30 days, or the drones only
Yeah.
last until they mate. But over winter, they need to keep that hive at a constant temperature. I think it's about 34 degrees. They cluster around the queen, and they don't do anything. They don't really come out unless it's like a really mild day. And
Yeah.
they'll come out for toilet breaks and things like that because they don't go in the hive, and they can hold it in for a quite long time. But in the winter, they need food, so they need to have food so that they can survive. They just eat stores and keep warm all winter. So that's what honey is.
Yeah.
Honeybees eat nectar as fuel, but they store nectar as honey, which is dehydrated, and they cap it off, and they store honey so that they can have that on a rainy day and over winter. So they didn't have that. The food shortage also caused the honeybees, the workers, to send a signal to the queen to say, listen, don't be laying so many eggs because we don't have enough food for the brood.
And away.
Means
Smart.
then that the colony isn't as strong.
Yeah.
So they're just, it's almost like, so they were really cross because then they were like, whenever the weather changed, they were out hunting for nectar, and there really wasn't any. There was a gap in August before the ivy came on.
And like, are you like just planting flowers that are right in lots, or do you just let them go explore themselves?
Well, our apiary is in a rewilded landfill site, which
Oh,
sounds awful,
ideal.
but it's
That's
absolutely
ideal,
beautiful.
surely. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So we don't need to. We've got water there. We've got lovely rivers. We've got like a wetland, and it's
Favorite.
just filled with all of the natural flora and fauna that they would have.
Amazing. Apologies, I've really gone down that
It's
rabbit hole.
fine.
So I find it so interesting. So obviously you've learned all the insides out of beekeeping and starting to produce honey, raw and ethical honey. So how do you start thinking about it from a business perspective? Initially, do you start selling the honey, and how does the kind of thoughts around the body care and the skin care start to shape?
So my career, I suppose, my career was, and you didn't ask me about my career, but my career was in
Yeah.
sales and marketing. So I created a product that contained honey and my own beeswax that healed my skin. And because I had quite a long career in sales and marketing, I kind of just went hell for leather and marketed that one product,
Yeah.
which I used my honey and stuff for. And for the first few years, I only had a few products. I made some soap, some skin
Yeah.
balms, and a few other bits and pieces. So I didn't need a massive amount, but we need to keep a contingency of honey. So we didn't get any honey this year, so we'll use last year's honey that we've still got left over. So we're always kind of thinking about that. But obviously, then that leaves us without a contingency for next year. So we're in a bit of a sticky
But
situation.
I suppose talk about scalability for a second.
Yeah.
How, if you want to start doing more with beehaven, are you going to try counteract that in the future by expanding the hive, or what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
so that's why I got into queen rearing this year because
Yeah,
you can split hives yourself. It's a little bit like a
yeah,
seed falling from a plant or
gotcha.
getting a clipping and starting a
Yeah,
new plant. You can actually do that with bees. But what I did this year and started to learn the year before was queen rearing. So we will
hmm,
be able to build our colony. So this year I bred 25 queens
yeah.
myself from like it's a thing called grafting. And from these 25 we got four additional colonies, which saved us £1,000. That would have cost
Wow,
us grand. Yeah. So that was
amazing.
my first year. So we'll do that continuously.
You mentioned earlier on about marketing a queen bee. I'm just fascinated. How does one lock a bee down to be able to market?
In a little beekeepers are great, right? Because most of them are inventors. They've got a real inventive brain I don't have. So
Yeah,
there's literally an odd looking contraption for everything. Nothing's beautiful. Nothing's,
but it
it's all
works.
very functional and whatever. So
Yeah,
basically you get the queen and you pop her in this little cage and then you put
yeah,
like a thing inside it so that she can't get back out, but you're not going to hurt, like a bit of sponge.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Almost like a stamp in a sense, and then she's up at the top and she's got the back's on her back, and then you
yeah.
just a mark on her
Well,
thorax. But
mad.
listen, let me tell you, so it's very difficult. I don't like to do it. A lot of beekeepers who've been beekeeping for a long time be very, very schooled at it and do it very naturally. Because
Yeah.
I've never marked my queens. This year was the first time that I ever marked my queens because I had
How'd
them
you
in
go?
cage. Right? I killed the first queen. I squashed her.
Sorry, I
I
shouldn't
cut
laugh.
her
I
head off.
shouldn't. I shouldn't
I
laugh.
worked so hard.
Did you have the
I was
mentor there with you?
devastated. I cried. I was like that. I cut her head off.
It's a real drama,
You
isn't it?
just got made it because you don't mark a queen before you can't. Well,
Oh, so
I
she
didn't
kind of,
mark my
and she
queen.
just got mated as well. Oh,
She just
double,
got
double
mated. She
whammy.
came back. She was laying beautiful eggs. Beautiful queen. Lovely big throat. Lovely big abdomen. Really well mated. And I cut her head off.
Oh, well, I suppose you live and learn, and you've got a few more. So
Yeah, that's fine.
that is brilliant. And I suppose going back to the sales and marketing side of things, so as you said, you had a background in sales and marketing. You've this kind of first couple of batches. What kind of tactics are you using when you're first starting to launch it, given what your career was in terms of getting this out to market?
So my idea was that it was going to be a profitable hobby. It was going to be something that I could kind of semi-retire for retire from work a little bit early and kind of do this as well as travel the world and things
Yeah,
like that. It's never going
yeah.
to happen
Look.
now because I went too far with it now. We've become a monthly award for the business, right? I'm not retiring anytime soon. That's me. I'll be here until I die. But so what I kind of thought was I didn't want a website or anything like that. Um, all of these things obviously have happened, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to. I was going to use Facebook to be honest. I had to get
Hmm.
certified. You can't just make cosmetics and sell them, although
Yeah.
many people do. You have to go through a certification process. There's a
Yeah.
lot of hoops and stuff. So I did that with two products and kind of sold them on Facebook. And I had bought my URL one night over Christmas, thinking maybe I had a glass of wine too many, and I thought I should buy a URL. So I bought a URL with
Yeah.
no
What was
intention of
it?
having a website. It was the beehavenbeekeepers.co.uk, which isn't my website now, it's beehavenbodycare.co.uk. But I bought that URL, and then the website company kept on phoning me and offering me amazing deals for a year.
Yeah.
So, you know, my marketing tactic was really just focused around Facebook and social
Facebook.
media.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then because I got this deal on a website and I was also in hospital just before Christmas and I can't not do anything. So I built a website.
Fair play,
And
to you.
what happened was I mean, looking back on it now, I'm embarrassed, but it worked.
Yeah,
And
but
what
you got.
happened, because I had a website, then I had this compulsion then, well, I haven't got enough stock for the web. I haven't got enough things. It doesn't look
Hmm,
very good. So
hmm,
then I started
hmm.
to create gift boxes and look into making more products. And that was really the sort of the thrust into
Yeah. Yeah.
probably actually having a proper business. But I
Yeah.
didn't quit my job until last December there. I was still working part time. I didn't.
And I suppose how did you? Just jumping into that for a second. What was the switching point that you said, right, I'm finished working part time, going full time into that? Like, what was there a particular trigger that you're like, right now it's time?
So what happened was really it was solely website. I got a new website made from Shopify. I got an app built as well, which has been very, very good for us. But it was solely website. So all I needed was an area to pick and pack out of. I was doing that from home and then it became too much. So I moved into this kind of, I would call it like a garage really that I rented
Yeah.
it was very cold and all the rest of it, but it was functional, it was very cheap and it worked for us.
Hmm.
But it was away from my home, and this area here that I'm in now, my shop, which is the old post office, came up. It's just round the corner from home. And I'd also grown a TikTok audience of, at that point, maybe like 50,000 or something, due to
Nice.
the beekeeping and the business.
Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to monetize. I
Yeah.
wanted to monetize that. So I kind of thought if I could, stream live all day long, picking and packing orders and things like that, then I would upscale the website. I always
Yeah.
wanted to bring my daughter in. Brooke's
Yeah.
27 now. She was 26 at the time, and she's from a finance background, which I'm
Oh,
really,
great.
yeah, so really, really good. Not interested in bees, terrified of them, right? But she's from a finance background, so I really wanted to create a space for her. However, I really didn't have the cash flow, and the business wasn't that size yet. But as
Yeah.
things kind of happened, whenever I moved in here, because I was in a very area where a lot of people walk past and drive past, people started to wonder what I was doing. So people were
Yeah.
coming in and buying a few bits. This was all boxes just. So I started to
Yeah.
use it out like, a shop, I suppose. So that was the fundamental moment. That was the change. As soon as I
Yeah.
had a shop mentality, I then created another revenue stream, and actually that overtook the website by
Oh,
threefold.
brilliant.
Yeah, and at that point, I brought Brooke in. There was enough room for her, well, enough money to pay her, really, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brought her in, and at that point, then I had more time to make stuff. So we were selling more stuff due to that. So by the end of August, the shop front, we moved in here in April. The shop front happened last July, and by the end of August, we had done what we would normally do in 6 months in one.
Fair
And I was
play.
like, right, I'm going to
You're
give
on to
up.
something.
I'm going to give up work in December,
Yeah.
and it just gives me more time. I spend all day making. So we've increased
Yeah.
our product range from what was then 101 products, which is a lot of products to make for one person. But
Yes.
now I've
Yeah.
got like maybe 185, 190
Wow.
that I make in here. So I just across there's my little like
Amazing.
manufacturing area. So that was whenever I was able. I knew that if I had more time, I could make more money. I kind of realized
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 Amazing. And going through you kind of just described it as a very laissez-faire type, no bother to your process, but that process of getting certified from a cosmetic point of view, was that daunting at all? Was it easy to do? How was that process?
Absolutely horrific, Ciaran. Right, I'm very dyslexic,
Yeah.
and any of those government
Oh God.
legislation, I just can't. I mean, I can't read it. So
Yeah.
I had to, a lot of the YouTube videos are wordy and lengthy, and I'm
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
creative person, so I found it
Yeah.
very difficult. But again, it was just one of those things that I took stage by stage. Um, I remember sending off my first certification to the company that I used at the time, and I sent them the recipe like on an email,
Yeah.
and and they were like, "Can you send us the INCIs?" Which is like it's a big massive word. I still can't
Yeah.
even say it, but it's basically, if you look at the label or the
Yeah.
ingredients
With
label,
you.
and there's all these things that you don't understand. Well, that's the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
INCI
Yeah.
of the ingredient. I didn't know what an INCI was. I had no idea. I just made this really good product. I had zero idea about anything to do with packaging, to do with labeling. I just didn't know. So
Yeah.
um, I sent off the certification, and the company were very good, and they guided me through it. So that then
Yeah.
helped me go from a quick learner. So once I do it once or twice, and it's fine. And I joined a couple of soap making forums on Facebook, and they're very good. There's a really good one called Saponification Nation. I know, but it's
I love
amazing.
it. I love these niches. It's so good.
Saponification. Anybody who's making soap, Saponification Nation is where you want to go.
Yeah.
Those people guided me through. We all guide through each other's first steps into it. Recently I've just sort of started to make whipped soap, and
Yeah.
that's been a journey in itself. And just getting the information to make that
Yeah.
came from us. Really, it all happened one question at a time.
Yeah.
Tackling one issue at a time. But we've
So
got there.
good. And like I'm like a car going backwards and forwards here, but curious as well. You mentioned TikTok, so you started at Facebook as the kind of the main channel to start getting an audience. Obviously, TikTok has kind of way more recent. Why did you decide this was the channel that was going to be able to propel you and build an audience, and kind of where did that all come from?
Again, it's one of those things. It's like eating the honey and discovering bees, or making the product and starting a business, or renting the location and then starting a shop. It's one of those things that I couldn't have avoided if I tried to, and I
Yeah.
tried to avoid it. I tried not to open a shop. I tried not to start a business. I tried not to become a beekeeper, and I tried not to do TikTok, right? But I do believe that the universe has, if it's for you, you can't avoid it, right? So
Yeah.
I knew this guy, I still know, he's got a very, very successful marketing business, and I knew him because he grew up in the same area. And he'd done a few videos for us, not, anyway, he said to me, Emma, you should be on TikTok. And I worked for a makeup brand before. So we had, we'd heard about TikTok. It was in
Yeah.
lockdown, maybe lockdown number 1 or 2, I can't remember, maybe lockdown 2. And I said, is that just for kids dancing? Is that just a kid?
Yeah.
We sold so much makeup in lockdown 1 for people doing their TikTok videos, because they were like, we're not going to sell any makeup, but actually
Yeah.
our makeup like flew out because of people doing TikTok. So I'd heard about it from that aspect. But I didn't think it was anybody would be interested in a boring beekeeper. I mean, yawn, so he said, no, you need to go on it, you need to try it, see what you think. So
Yeah.
I did. And to be honest for you, the first 3 or 4 months, it was, I just kind of threw a lot of crap at the wall to see what would
Yeah.
stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still do that. Like, I still wing it. And some videos I make, I think, that's going to be a great one. And nobody watches it. And then some random thing happens and, it gets like 2.8. Like, I spilled a kilogram of honey in the boot of my car. And I think that like had almost 3 million views or something. It was
It's
just me
mad.
trying to clean it up. But But TikTok has been incredible for me. It's definitely a poison chalice. It's definitely a very difficult platform to
Yeah.
be on constantly all day, every day, and you have to be strong in mind
Yeah.
to continue to do it. Even it's just becoming more and more toxic even now. But
Yeah.
I get so many people come through this door on a weekly basis
Hmm.
who follow you on
Because of
TikTok.
it.
People see you. They know you because you talk to them every day.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
become part of their family. They feel like they know you, and so they.
Yeah.
Whereas in Facebook, I always find you had to list the features and benefits of every product. This
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
it is. This is how much it is, and this is what it's going to do. People on the TikTok channel, I think you could, they just believe in what you're saying, so you don't need to
Amazing.
do that. You,
Yeah.
you can sell. I could be talking about the weather, and people will be like, "Oh, I'll go and buy some of her soaps. They look great."
Yeah.
So, for me, TikTok has been definitely a massive pivotal moment for us. So, we've now
Yeah.
got 80,000 followers, and a lot of it's bee stuff, but
Yeah.
a lot of it is my day to day and messes that I make and mistakes
Hmm.
and things that don't work out the way that they should. So,
But it's been a great catalyst to kind of
Mm.
build relevancy for you, and you can see the connection back to the business in terms of
absolutely.
customers, and yeah.
It's one of those platforms that if that wasn't there, like I find on Instagram, you don't get much traction. There's not much interaction with your posts.
Hmm.
People see them,
Hmm.
but it's more of a swipey swipe swipe.
Yeah.
Facebook's very strange because the algorithm's just broken.
So that
But
kind of,
yeah, so I find, if I didn't have that interaction on TikTok, I definitely I couldn't do it because
yeah.
it just there's so much other stuff that comes with positive
Yeah.
that you need to have that big massive it's worth it, or you just wouldn't do
Hmm.
it.
And talk me through. You mentioned obviously you built the website at the beginning, but you've now plugged in Shopify. You've got an app. Did you go and find someone to go and do that? How was that experience?
Again, it's a random story. So I think I was asking a question on a Northern Ireland business Facebook forum, and this guy got in
How
contact
many
with me.
forums have you got on the go? You got the beekeepers, the soap makers.
Oh no, no more beekeepers. No, no, not in that one. No, not in the not in that one anymore. But, yes, very forums are great for dyslexic people. That's all I'm going to say,
Yeah.
right? People who don't like to read. You ask a
Yeah.
question, you get an answer. Super.
Perfect.
So this guy, I went on to ask about something. This guy contacted me and said, like, we make websites and apps. And I had my first website through Ionos. And this guy who had been in the industry for years had never heard of anybody ever using Ionos as a web platform, more so
Yeah.
for emails and URLs.
Yeah.
So anyway, they built me a website. It was two guys in Portadown built a website and an app for me, and it was very, very functional. Didn't look pretty.
Yeah.
They're not into the pretty stuff. So
Yeah.
I taught myself how to change everything, how to take really good photographs, use Canva, and then work the back up.
Canva's amazing, isn't it?
Canva is life
It's,
changing.
isn't it? It's just so
I,
impressive.
I thought of an idea. Yeah, I'm making these carpet powders, and Brooke and I were talking about a brand name, and
Yeah.
this is how much I use Canva, right? So I thought about the brand name, and I was just talking to Brooke, and I went, "Yeah, transparent background, download." And she went, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I literally am using Canva in my mind because I
Yeah.
use it so much."
It's incredible.
Very, very good.
So sorry I interrupted you there. You were using Canva and other tools to make the website look beautiful.
Make it look beautiful, and I've come so far. I'm never happy. I'm constantly looking at things and how to make things look better and more impulsive. And I think that comes from my time in sales and marketing. Even just yesterday, I sort of rejigged this to make it more impulsive for the whip soap because
Yeah.
shampoo bars sell. You don't need to have them in a good spot, but the whip soap needs to be. So
Yeah.
more so with the website, I've learned how to make good kind of pictures, and rejig it and like sort of guide people through the website journey because people don't like to spend a lot of time on the website. They need to find what I find people need to find or need to be able to see what they need to buy in the first 5 seconds, or they'll go and spend their money elsewhere. So I've always used that. I used to work for a big chocolate company. I'm sure I can mention brands and stuff, can I?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right.
So I used to work for Mars Chocolate.
Love a celebration.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. Got made redundant. I've just about forgiven them, but I'm so glad that I did because I now do this, right?
Yeah.
But the training for Mars, I mean, it was probably like 6 weeks long, and it was really just how to convert and the decision maker into a buyer, and all of those things that I learned selling chocolate, I've then used to sell cosmetics, and it's worked. It's worked.
Nice. That's brilliant. And how, once you get the Shopify up and running, how addictive is getting those emails saying sale, sale, sale?
That noise, that ching.
Yeah. It's manna from
But
heaven.
it is definitely manna from heaven. The only problem is I have massive imposter syndrome. Mightn't sound
Yeah.
like it. Oh, I'm terrible.
Oh,
Terrible. I judge myself on a business level day by day.
yeah.
So September's a bad month for us because schools go back and uniforms are expensive. Our main customers are, women of that age.
Yeah.
Also, people are starting to save for Christmas. And the Department for Infrastructure have just closed the main road into the village that I trade in for 12 weeks.
Oh,
So yeah, we are quieter than I would like to be at the minute, and I know it'll be fine. And I know over the past 5 years, I've worried every day on day, and it's always been okay. But yeah, I have massive imposter syndrome. So that ching ching or whatever
yeah,
thing I
yeah,
have,
yeah, yeah.
cash register noise. If I don't hear it enough, then I start to stress. I'm like, I'm gonna, I mean,
Yeah.
if I have a poor day of sales, I'm thinking to myself, am I going to have to get another job? Am I going to have to go back to work to give all this up? I won't. I mean, we had a
Yeah.
massive year. Last year, we doubled our turnover.
Amazing.
Amazing. And we hit 6 figures, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So I know that we're okay, but
Yeah.
the
And
manna from
what's
heaven isn't as forthcoming sometimes as it needs to be.
and now that you've got Brooke in, how's that experience been? Has it been very enjoyable? What's it like working with your daughter?
We were very worried about it, to be honest, right? Because Brooke and I had Brooke whenever I was 17, so we grew up more like sisters.
Yeah.
And I can be incredibly annoying. I'm sure you would believe that. I can
Not at
be,
all. I am really enjoying this episode.
can be incredibly annoying, right? So Brooke and I hadn't lived together for quite a few years because she's an adult and whatever. So we wouldn't have spent a lot of time together. So whenever the job came up, and for me on a mummy level, especially a single mummy level and young mummy level, being able to give her something that I didn't have whenever I was that age, i.e. a stable, steady income and a job that you love, a job that you want to go to every day, was a massive big tick in the box for me. So even though I wasn't sure how it would work out on a getting along together basis, I knew that it was something that I had to do and I wanted to do. So whenever she started, it was last August, she's just had her first year. And let me tell you, the amount of giggles and laughs we have, and we just
Oh,
crack each other up. We laugh
love
at each other on a whole other, I mean, we will be at,
it.
like tears, mascara, and rolling about on the floor, and just like, just cracking up. So we do have that a lot. We very rarely
Love it.
have issues because Brooke looks after Sage and our VAT returns. She looks
Yeah.
after all of the cosmetic compliance. All of those
Yeah.
things keep her very busy. And I'm over there doing social media and making everything
Nice.
and the shop. So we're sort of super skilled at our own areas. I don't want to do her
Yeah.
team if she doesn't want to do mine. So it kind of works perfectly.
That's so good. And like, had you got like the Sage, the accounting software in already, or was she like, this is what we need to do, this is how we sort out numbers?
It kind of just happened. We had an incredible August, September. We didn't have a good September. We had an incredible August, September, and October last year in our accounting because we were a limited company from the day dot. I was probably
Yeah.
my first year might have been like £500 turnover, but we were limited because my dad, like that was my dad, and I was like, why did he do a limited company? But I know why now, and I'm so glad that he
Yeah.
did. So our accountant was like, Emma, you're going to have to go VAT registered here. So
Oh, you
luckily,
hit that 85K
oh,
threshold.
we hit it fast. It was great, but it's so
Yeah, I
depressing.
know. Those,
It's a
and also
lovely,
getting your head around those VAT payments, rebates. Oh, it's a nightmare.
oh, it's just awful. So
Yeah.
Brooke, all I did for Brooke is I always promised her I was going to get her a proper desk phone. I'll get you a proper desk phone. I'm going to get you two screens. So I got her
Yeah.
two screens, a desk phone. Right, you sort the
A
rest out.
bee trader.
You sort the rest
Show
out.
me the honey. Sorry, that's so cringe.
So she organised Sage. We didn't do Sage until the end of our first financial year because it just would have messed everything.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
but at the end of
Gotcha.
last financial year, sorry. So she was only Sage then from February onwards, and the VAT returns she's been able to. But yeah, she sorted it all out. She's very good at implementing structure and procedure, whereas I, as you can imagine, I'm just you know every
It's working. It's
really
working.
crazy. Yeah, so she's good. She's very very good at that. No, so it's all been her.
Amazing. And then, so I suppose then, as we kind of come to the end of this year, looking ahead, what are you guys thinking in terms of next steps or things you'd like to focus on to kind of grow the business a bit more?
Yeah. We get, and this is a conversation that we get a lot. And somebody phoned us yesterday about drop shipping, and I'm like, do you realize I make 20 of everything at once? I don't need drop shipping. I don't need drop shipping. I just need customers. That's all. Um, so there's always this thing of how are you going to upscale, right?
Yeah.
Fundamentally, we don't want to employ anybody to help with manufacture because those are my recipes and I'm not giving them to anybody.
Yeah.
So that kind of limits us, and I'm fine with that limitation. So the dynamic works fine as it is. We're going to have somebody hopefully to help us in the shop very soon, so I can make more. But looking forward, where does our growth come from? It's organic growth. So it's just selling more organically through word of mouth and social media. It's growing the product base organically because we've got so much now that there's a few bits and pieces we need to slot in here and there, new different variations and discontinue some stuff and bring some new stuff out. So it's more about that rather than growing the brand.
Yeah.
The brand is hit where I wouldn't say it's its peak, but it's kind of where we're happy with.
Yeah.
We're not. It's
Yeah.
not this mad dash to we need to do something to make sure we can pay our rent at the end of the month. We've
Yeah.
done all
Yeah.
of that. So it's
Yeah.
just riding that wave. So it'll just be, more customers. I suppose a steadier business.
Yeah.
Less peaks and less troughs would be good.
And
Um,
I suppose, like, I'm now so curious to see how this queen strategy is going to go down because you've now got way more queens. So hopefully that gives you more stock then in the
Yeah,
future as
well, I
well.
think
Yeah.
that's going to be so good for us in the beekeeping aspect. I was always terribly worried over winter about how many bees or how many colonies you would lose, especially this year with the drought and the weaker colonies because of the queen not laying as much. There's definitely going to be casualties over the winter. And those casualties, because really, whenever you're in beekeeping, you're kind of phoning and going, Bob, do you have any hives that are, you'd be buying things off, like trading from other beekeepers. So
Yeah.
takes that element of I don't know if we're going to be able to get any
Yeah.
away because we know as soon as April comes into play, I will be out there in the bee yard grafting and trying to create my own colonies from scratch. So that's incredible for us, so valuable.
And come here, just to finish on like knowing like position you're in now, are you happy you made all those decisions of, as you say, getting done with Mars and just then putting the all the work aside and going into this? Like, are you happy with all of that?
Absolutely. I often say if this had happened to me whenever I was 20, I'd be a millionaire. It's happened to me a bit later in life than I would have liked, to be honest, because I had 20 years of worrying and hating everything and being made
Yeah,
redundant and not knowing how I was gonna, I had all of that for 20 years. So I suppose I had to overcome all of those things to be the business person that I am now, to
yeah,
know what an opportunity is to be got at, sort of sought after, and what an opportunity is to be rejected. So all of that has happened with knowledge and wealth. I am so happy that this is, yeah, it's almost like a dream. It's almost like someone is like get I've always felt, a little bit in life that you kind of march to the top of the mountain and showing everything you can have, and then
yeah.
sometimes you march back down again. There you go, you stop, but you're not going to, that's not for you. That's how I felt after I was made redundant from Mars Chocolate, because I was like, how can this, because it was a wonderful job,
Yeah,
and then it's taken away. And in Northern Ireland, you don't have opportunities like that. There just isn't. So that you're never going to
yeah.
find that again. So I always felt like that. But now I've been marched to the top of the mountain, and unless something horrific happens, which isn't going to happen, I'm not going back down that mountain
You're
again.
on Table Mountain. It's
I am
flat
not
as.
going back down. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love that. I honestly, genuinely couldn't have enjoyed chatting to you anymore, Emma. And like, I really, really hope Behaving is just the best ever
Thank you so much.
brand.
Spread the word.
I absolutely will. Hopefully, we can do our little bit of
I
spreading
must
here.
send you
But
some. I'll send you some stuff down, but we'll
I,
talk.
I'll go on the website today and buy myself some. I loved it. You are fantastic, and I love the energy and the story and all the forums and everything. And I really just hope you and Brooke smash it. I loved it.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so much
Ciaran.
for coming on and
Thank
chatting.
you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Emma. I just love that so much.